Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Alleycat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, I connect on Epiphany, a mind explosion, artwork to create, all the fun things that you could do on my channel. A way to help me is to click on those links in the description if you feel so humble to do so. AlleyCatCreations211 is my website. You can see beautiful, fantastic pyramids like this one that's going in the mail tomorrow. I didn't put these on yet. I knew I have to. I might do it after the show. Um, without spilling things. This still is not demolded. I have to one more layer. Hearts, skulls, pyramids, paintings. Fun stuff of that nature is on my website. If you're interested in anything, please email me because I do things privately. And channel memberships is a really good way to support the channel. If you're so inclined to do so, there's a little clickily-do. Click it. This way, you don't miss anything. And you get channel member perks like channel member only videos that I do, which includes oracle readings, which I pretty much do for people for $40 an hour. So that's free for all my channel members there, as a collective reading, of course. And I have raffles once a month, and all my channel members get a free entry into those raffles. So one raffle was a pyramid, the next was a paint and sip. Who know? I'm gonna do a skull, a gem skull, next one. So free entries. It's not bad. I give back where I can. The Voice of Isis. That's tobacco, by the way. Chapter 11, A Study of Reincarnation or Rebirth. Now, what was I doing on my day off? Because today's President's Day, and my printer wasn't working. It took me 2 hours to get my printer to start working to print out things. Fun times. I was also listening to podcasts and stuff of that nature. My views on incarnation, reincarnation, and all of that stuff will definitely vary from this book. I will not say it's wrong or right. It's a perception. Be an awareness that if you align, go for it. I will see how I align, but it's perception. And I don't view time space in the quantum states of life. There goes my printer. Um, as time is an illusion. There is no time. All things are concurrently happening right now in the many worlds theory, the multiverse. I have to extrapolate my theory, write it down, and then hopefully get it to Mr. Fajin to consider a couple of things that I think his work could maybe establish something of a higher order of quantum states in consciousness, but using spirituality and the law of one by Ra. Yeah, there's a lot going on in my brain, and it's a lot to process. But without further ado, mind you, I'm once again congested. I don't think my infection it like kind of nilled itself, but it's still lingering. I've been taking supplements. I'm upping supplements. See if I can knock this, whatever this is. I know it's my sinuses. Whether it be infection, bacterial, or fungal, I don't know. But I'm working on getting it eradicated because it's really highly annoying that this is like a lingering thing. or figure out what I'm allergic to. Fun times. A study of reincarnation or rebirth. Quote, he asked his disciples, saying, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah's, or one of the prophets, St. Matthew. When the old teachings of reincarnation was revived in the Western world, it was necessary to bring to bear all the powers of logic to prove its reasonability and its ancient worldwide acceptance. Today, this truth has permitted all classes of society, filling the world's literature, furnishing the motif for many successful stage productions, thus proving that the public is eager for the subject. This isn't this itself, is an evidence of rebirth. For what else can this widely renewed interest in the subject be but a reincarnation of an ancient worldwide belief? For detailed proofs of its reasonability, we refer the student to other authorities. Like many other things that are true and generally accepted proof that would convince all is out of question. For what is proof to one is not to another. For instance, a spiritualist might say that if he had lived before, something might be given him by disincarnate entities about a former life that could be verified by historical records. This would be no proof at all, for it would be an easy matter for any disincarnate entity capable of communicating to secure the information from any records accessible to the investigator. As far as an absolute proof goes, each one must take this law as he takes many other laws upon its reasonability. If it fails in this or in its ability to afford a rational explanation for the many discrepancies of life, which are otherwise unexplainable, he is at the liberty to reject it. But for those who do accept it, we will make an effort to remove some of the misconceptions and clear up some of the vulgarities which, like barnacles, have attached themselves to this truth. I can refer all of you to TikTok or to other platforms where children will tell you about their incarnations concurrently. So let's think on a linear time frame. So we're in 3D, right? There are children who have experienced the collapse of 9/11, the towers, that are reincarnate and can tell you what went on. There's others that have claimed that they were a soldier, they flew an airplane, they crashed, and they landed somewhere, and then that family takes the kid to the land and to the place, and they find the gravestone of the person, hence said, was on the plane. There are so many accounts of this, but yet inside of us, there's like a blockade of things that stop us from acknowledging that we were other things before this consciousness, that we are inhabiting this vehicle. For many of us on the spiritual side, we understand we're fractals of all things, and many of our fractals are in a pie chart like I show on my channel, and that in this pie chart, you are composed of more consciousness of some entities than others. And that collectively remembering of this awakening, you're remembering who you are. In essence, you're going to start collectively remembering other selves that are concurrently now in space time, playing out in the multiverse. I know that's really hard to conceive, but those people who claim that they were Yeshua that is a partial truth. Maybe a lot of the fractals of Yeshua is in you, and you're having remembrance of these events. I do believe that our soul inhabits multiple vehicles in multiple time spaces in different dimensionalities and densities. What we would rather consider reincarnation would just be that we are having the entangled memory to another self, living in another juncture of space-time. That's how I view it, on a quantum scale. But just take a look at a lot of this stuff because it's very interesting. If you were to go look at those incarnative videos with children who are recalling their memories of another life, it's very profound and worth looking into. Quote, intimately, or rather indissolubly, connected with karma is a law of rebirth, or of the reincarnation of the same spiritual individuality in a long, almost interminable series of personalities. The latter are like the various characters played by the same actor, with each of which the actor identifies himself and is identified by public for the space of a few hours. The inner or real man who personates those characters knows the whole time that he is Hamlet, only for the brief space of a few acts, which, however, on the plane of human illusion, represents the whole life of Hamlet. He knows also that he was, the night before, King Lear, the transformation in his turn of the Othello of a still earlier preceding night. And though the outer visible character is supposed to be ignorant of the fact, and in actual life that ignorance is, unfortunately, but too real, nevertheless, the permanent individuality is fully aware of it. And it is through the atrophy of the spiritual eye in the physical body that the knowledge is unable to impress itself on the consciousness of the personality. You could take this as when I say in my other videos that I am playing a theme out for this consciousness to explore self in a different context, and my other selves exploring financial crisis and the lack of others giving me love in a romantic sense. That's the theme I'm playing out. I'm acting as that character in this vehicle. We're all on God's stage, correct? When the physical body is left in the tomb, the soul is clothed in an astral body and lives for a time upon the astral plane, in the exact environment for which its development fits it. A period of time is passed in digesting and assimilating the lessons of the past life, in the reverse order of their acquirement, in realizing the inevitable trend of all its desires and actions while on earth. The progress made is in the growth and development of the seeds of good and evil sown during earth life. For this reason, unless reincarnation had been brought to one's attention upon earth, he would be very unlikely to know anything about it or come in contact with those who did, for there was nothing in his astral environment to suggest it any more than there was in his physical environment. After having passed through the various subdivisions of the astral world and passed on to higher states of consciousness, there comes a time in his evolution when, after a long period of rest, during which he has exhausted or experienced spiritual bliss, resulting from the realization of all his earthly ideals, he realizes his limitations and chooses once more to clothe himself in flesh. He does this firstly from a comprehension of the great work of the redemption of humanity and the globe, which he has obtained upon the higher planes, and of the necessity of fitting himself through further earthly experience for his necessary part in the work, and secondly, because of a strong desire to help on the evolution of the race, which evolution can only be accomplished by the purified soul clothing itself in fleshly atoms, that it may train and purify them. The soul realizes that it lacks of experience, the lack of experience limits its usefulness, and a deliberate choice is made once more to function through a physical body. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. And many of us have chosen this. Um, Not from a lower astral point of view. Um, Many of us, when we transcend, we are putting a little bit of a holding tank per se to get used to the transcension of being in physicality and matter and now not being densified in matter. You're brought into a lower fourth astral density where you get to take a rest, you get your life review, you get to meet all your family, they densify down to say, hi, what's up? And then you orchestrate again either another life or that you're going to stay up there. What in concurrent time space is happening for my understanding and rationale for the ascension is a lot of people are leaving because they can no longer hold the vibration and frequency of the upliftment of Earth's consciousness, frequency, and vibration. They can't hold those states of frequency anymore. And their bodies are slowly taking leave so that the soul can reaccumulate its atoms and subatomic particles and transfer itself into a better vehicle or in a holding pattern, hold itself out until enough of us in humanity shifts to be rebirthed or to take on another form, um, which will then recognize the signature frequency of that person that we once knew in once said body. Um, I know, make that make sense. It's hard. But this is my wheelhouse. And I hope I'm trying to layman's terms this as best as possible. But a lot of people are really like stuck on this death. They're afraid, they're in fear of the death and the transition. It's just transcending your energy into another form. And the other form is a light photonic form. It doesn't necessarily need to mean you're eternal. You're not going nowhere. You're just not confined. Sorry, I have my heater on. You're not confined to a body. This is just a like a puppet, and you're the string up there making this function on a spiritual sense. Um, there's no fear. Don't fear. And don't get this is where the cold bitch in me comes out. You have to detach from people, the emotional states of needing them. They're here for a reason. They're here on their own journey. You birth children to have their own journey, and you have to allow them to experience and have that journey and not be the puppet master over them. They're their own puppet master. They have to make their, wrongs in life to have that experience to undo the wrongs. The same goes for you. You birth them into existence to have experience and for lessons and learnings and teachings and guidance. Once that role is over, once your 3D contract ends, nullifies, you're passing on and you're transcending to something way better than this shit show. And then, yeah, why would I want to come back? Because many of us know that we can handle it and that we're transforming it each time that we come back in form. But we're talking linearly here, not quantum. Quantum meaning 3D is based off of classical physics. It has limitations. Like I said, it's ontological. We're based off frequency and vibration, but still in its earliest definement. We're in a holographic simulation, but yet go try to prove that. It can be proved in other scales and other thoughts of frequency and higher dimensional thinking, but let's take ourselves back into 3D. Most of us already transcended consciously up to the higher dimensional spaces, but we're still in the 3D body. What fits here take the many worlds and the multiverse out of the equation, you keep coming back to have experience because your frequency is needed here. If you wanted to, you could have chosen to be your fifth density guide to your lower self. You could have been the guide, and you are. You're in all places and all things. But you're not consciously aware of those memories. So therefore we deem it reincarnation. Sorry, I'm channeling and I'm going off on tangents here. Being one with God, the soul, has the power of choosing its path and its environments, subject to the law of karma, the one desire being to quickly fulfill the cycle of necessity and return to the Father's heart. Therefore, it chooses an environment not as a personality would choose for wealth, ease, or happiness, for it realizes that spiritual happiness must be born of earthly experience, must be the giving up of self for the upliftment of all, but an environment which will give it the best opportunity to gain the experience it lacks. Fuck me. The best environment that its karma will permit. Yeah, fuck me over twice. It naturally incarnates among its old associates unless, as sometimes happens, there is some karma or needed lesson that takes it temporarily into a new set of associations, a side issue. This clothing itself in flesh involves the training of a new instrument, brain and body, which it is not correlated with memory of the real self, and thus the why is forgotten. For otherwise, a lesson would be no lessons at all. That's truth. This experience of the soul might roughly be compared to a person away on a pleasure trip in a foreign country, where he suddenly realizes there is some task he has failed to perform, leaving, or that there is some loved one who needs his help, and he returns to take up the duty, even though the task could be sordid and repulsive, and the loved one unappreciative. There is no person, therefore, who can say that at present time he is having his last incarnation, for only when the soul reaches a stage where it weighs itself in the balance and realizes that there still lacks something of Earth's experience to fit it to take its destined place in the grand plan, only then can it be known whether or not the Earth urge will draw it back into incarnation. This urge is not always from karmic necessity, except during the earlier stages of evolution, for many souls return through pure love and compassion to help the world, even after they, as separated individuals, have gained all the necessary experience and wisdom. Therefore, it is foolish for pupils or disciplines to talk about this being their last incarnation, for were they advanced in wisdom, they would know that their attitude proclaimed aloud that they were lacking in even ordinary discretion and common sense. Pause here. For now, this was written back a long time ago, so things have changed in time space, linear space time. We are splitting into differential experiences after the graduated harvest that has been talked about through the ages. Of course, those who are in transition now have the opportunity to come back, but to the new earth, which it's in its infancy, and not many have consciously accumulated that frequency to get there yet. We're not moving per se. The earth is not physically splitting per se. The negative polarized people are fading and we're rising and shifting in vibration. You could choose to come back in whatever vibrational state and frequency you deemed fit for your soul to have experience. To say that there's a physical splitting, if you believe in what I do in the multiverse, there already is a concurrence of splits of a million different types of Earths that any one time you can jump to in a time-space quantum leap to get to. They didn't have this complicated quantum knowledge back when this book was written. And I like it for the fact that it is simplistic. We're moving away from the simplistic. Unfortunately, it's going to be simplistic once you grasp the concepts of the heavier vocabulary that I'm using. But you get to choose when you transcend what you want to do with your soul. And in what aspect do you want it to come back? Many of us are going to be our guides, spirit guides, to our animals. They're going to have Earth life. Will they experience Earth life in 3D or will they experience Earth life in 4D? Do you see where I'm going with that concept? The Earth is splitting, but it's not splitting in terms of physical split. It's physically splitting in frequency and vibratory state. So a 3D Earth will always exist. You can technically incarnate, once you transcend, back into that 3D state. Or you could 3D state yourself in another 3D locale, in another dimensional, planetary, galactic order. That's for you and your soul to decide. If you're transcending now, you have the opportunity to come back in 4D, 5D, 6D, whatever Earth takes in its frequency bandwidth. It's up to you. So just bear that in mind, that a lot of us came back here because we wanted to be witness, but also hone in the frequency of higher consciousness for this shift from 3 to 4. We're bridges to that. If it wasn't for a lot of us, and that's not coming from an egoic state, that's coming from a knowing innately that so many of us are holding frequency of a higher order, electrical frequency in our toroidal field to hold the space for the shift for others to jump in, leap and bound. That's why we're the bridges. We're in between heaven and earth, many of us. I live more up there than I do down here. We're the bridges, and it's up to you and what your decision is. And each and every one of you is going to be individualistic in your choice of what you want for yourself. Don't go based off of what everybody else or even myself is saying. Align with your soul's soul, not personality, not ego's, truth. Soul. Because damn it, I'm having my powder moment. We must also bear in mind that there are many more souls excarnate than incarnate. Many of them are waiting for the wave of civilization to rise to the specific point that will permit them to fulfill their destiny in accord with, I just fucking said this, in karmic law. If the student will refer to what was said about the color rays in the chapter of evolution, it will be found to apply here, since all souls belong to one of the 7 great rays. Yes. They must wait for incarnation until the ray and sub-ray, go back to the law of one with the sub-octaves, to which they belong is manifested. Thus, if a soul started its special work during the manifestation of a certain sub-ray of the red ray, while under special conditions hinted at elsewhere, it might incarnate and work outside issues in another sub-ray. Yet the main work could not be continued until the same sub-ray was again manifesting. Right now, we're getting out of the solar plexus. We're merging from yellow, we're going into green. And sub-rays are just sub-octaves. If you equate it to the law of one, this is freaking genius shit. There is no regular set time during which souls remain excarnate. It depends upon many conditions and ranges all the way from almost immediate rebirth to 500 years, and in some cases far more. There is almost a great a diversity in times and seasons for rebirth as it is found in the affairs of men. I can say my soul waited for the circumstances of two people because I chose my parents, I chose my circumstances, but I also had to choose parents that were going to be purchasing the property on the Stargate. But because they physically couldn't have children, I had to be born through two other people that held the same frequency key and genetic keys that this soul needed in order to harbor and hunker down that frequency from the Stargate. So I had to find outside circumstances to be adopted to these particular people. And I had to wait. I was in a holding tank up there waiting for the perfect circumstances of the people buying that property to the people that could have me to that time space meetup. I had to wait. That's why I am a very tiny old soul who has a lot of remembering, but knows my somewhat of my purpose. But that's just giving you an example that I had to hold myself back for the perfect conditions in order for my mission, one of many, to be put into motion. So I had to wait. And many of you had to do the same. When it is taught that a soul incarnates sometimes in one sex and sometimes in another, yes, or in each sex for 7 incarnations alternatively, only a very small fragment of a great truth was hinted at. This partial truth, as time passed, has developed some ridiculous and irrelevant conceptions. Again, it is asserted by many that sex does not inhere in the soul, or androgynous up there. But the fact is that sex inheres in every manifestation of consciousness, although on the higher plane, sex manifests in quite a different way from that which we know as sex in the physical body. While the great mystery of sex in its fullness is as scarcely guarded today as it has ever been, so as this is the beginning of a new cycle or the reincarnation of a period of the manifestation of this great mystery, it becomes the duty of the masters and teachers connected with this special line of work to again give to the world a suggestion of inner truths connected with sex. But alas, the time is not yet ripe to entirely tear aside the veil and reveal the mysteries of the subject, although an effort is being made from the higher side of life to open the understanding of a few who can realize the divine possibilities of sex, that they may penetrate beyond the veil. We're androgynous. After fifth density, fifth, we are still individuated, but we have a male and a female aspect to our personalities and selves. Had different lifetimes, different experiences, but upper fifth, we start merging with that other self, our male or female, depending what gender you are here. You merge with it, but you can individuate and merge with it and individuate. It's your divine complement. Your soul, in essence, is androgynous. You choose the limitation separation when you come down here. And as a few mediums have told me, past based off of them giving me guidance, as also, even though I'm not necessarily a medium of spirit, but I'm a channel, that there is some confusion sometimes when a soul does come into a fetus and it's the wrong gender. That's where we get the other communities, the alphabet communities that come into play. And it's not a disrespect to them, because I have many friends and many people who don't identify with the body. They're more in touch with the soul aspect and component of themselves. It's a lesson to learn. It's nothing to scrutinize. It's love is love. And if you really took that to heart, you would leave these other friends and lovely people alone. Yes, there are some that aggrandize and go out and try out of their manipulation from other selves to impart some not okay things on society. But that's not speaking of a totality of a whole that feel that way. There's a lot of people who are good essences that just had soul confusion with the body. It's that's all it is. And once you can accept that and know it's an experience that God wanted to have through that person, you leave it alone. Do not judge. It is not the rule for a soul to change its sex when incarnating, but it's rather the exception. Since the separation of the sexes during the third race, the positive and negative rays always retain their characteristics and tend to incarnate in a body corresponding to their polarity. The exception occurs principally for two reasons. The one, which alas, at this period, is only too common. It is that if a soul gaining experience either through a male or female body fails to appreciate the lessons of the opposite sex, if it despises the other and either cruelly treats it or holds itself superior to it, such a soul at its next incarnation may find itself in a physical body of the despised sex. For this would be the only way that such a soul could learn the lessons of the sex and reap the karma it had created. However, the sex of the incarnating soul would not be changed. It'd always be a male soul in a female body, or vice versa. The world has no trouble in recognizing this, for such misfitted souls are frequent in every community, and there is no difficulty in noting the discrepancy between the sex of the incarnating entity and its body. I will say this from my own knowing. I was mostly female in the majority of my earthly incarnations, although I do have, and will say, I recall being a man in a lot of my other human incarnations. Um, I think the last life I lived was male, big time. Because a lot of men that I get into very in-depth conversations with, like, how would you know that feeling unless you felt it yourself? Aha! Get my drift? Because I was male and I remember it. I don't remember all the details, but I do remember the last life was male and further back. But I think most of my lives was female. I chose this as I chose female for most of my lives because I'm the path of light. The darker components to my masculine side was spent in the negative polarity, um, gaining experience and what I prefer over what I don't in a male aspect. But we all do this. We just don't realize it. Or maybe some of you do. Let me know in the comments what you believe that your soul has incarnated in a human form. I'm not talking about galactic form. But what do you remember, if any? Every male contains the potentiality of the female, and every female that of the male. And while we do not speak of this duality as sex upon the spiritual plane, as use the term sex on the physical plane, still, if the student will remember that was what was said in the chapter on karma, in regard to each soul being a part of the great or heavenly man and having a special work to do in a special place in which to fulfill its destiny, comparing it to the body, as we have done, it will be seen that some organs, souls, must fulfill the function of the positive expression masculinity, while others express a negative femininity. Any other condition would be unthinkable, for while we know that all expressions of life, from the molecule to God, are perfect epitomes of the cosmic and contain the two opposite poles, positive and negative, within each, yet in the aggregation of either atoms, organs, or souls, each must function with either the positive or negative expression predominating. It is just as though you took a horseshoe magnet and cut it up into pieces. Each piece would be a perfect magnet with positive and negative poles. And if you could separate it into atoms, each atom would have its positive and negative poles. Excuse me, I have a lot of my supplements coming up. Sorry. But when you put the atoms together to form a grand magnet, each would take its place on either the positive or negative side and express either attraction or repulsion. To carry the simile further, by reversing the current through the magnet, it would be easy to make that which was the positive pole become negative, and vice versa. This is what takes place when a masculine entity clothes itself with a feminine body. As to man evolving into an androgynous being in which both sexes manifest co-equally, as long as mankind is manifesting in separated sexes, it is a waste of time and energy to try to imagine such an existence. No, not anymore. For until you learn all the lessons possible in separate bodies, you can have no realization of what such a manifestation would be like. God damn it, yes. Proof in the pudding right there. And you would never learn those lessons as long as you despise any function and refuse to master it. The two sexes can never blend into one until each has reached a perfected expression of his or her sex, and they have learned to work together in perfect harmony while separated. The lesson is not for one sex to avoid or ignore the other, but to learn how to twain may become one in all things in heart, mind, and body, thus fulfilling the great law of sex. The second and rare cause for a change of sex is that of a soul may have reached a degree of mastery, yet owing to the world karma and to the restrictions of conventionality, such a soul may never have fully grasped or understood the opposite sex. For instance, a soul expressing the masculine principle might be deeply desirous of entering into the experience of the innermost depths of the opposite soul expression so as to see its temptations, feel its oppression, and learn its limitations, and thus be ready to take up a special work in the coming age whose keynote is the equalization of the sexes and the liberation of the restoration of women to her proper place. Therefore, a great teacher in preparing to take the place of leader in such an age might naturally desire to be clothed for one life period with a female outer covering. But even in this case, it would be evident to all thinkers that the sex of an entity differed from that of the body. Such a great teacher, moreover, might use that period, which would be her last earth experience, in entering into all phases of life. She might use the power possessed by all such teachers to merge the apparent personality into various other personalities. Thus, for a time, she might have to become one with and apparently manifest the qualities of a depraved sister, a swearing, wastering swashbuckler, a pirate, a learned scholar, or any other phase of humanity. She would thus, in a measure, be gaining the experience of humanity in the only way that would make the experience her very own, knowing all the temptations and also the inner germ of love and hope that even the most degraded hid somewhere within. Such a great teacher might be compared to an author who, in gathering data for a coming work, lives for a time in each class of society. But in the case of the great teacher, the power would be hers to absolutely become, for a time, the personality she desired to study. Thus, when her great work began, she would know just how to deal with all types of brothers and sisters, and from the higher planes, be ready to direct the reaping of the golden grain sprung from the seeds of divine truth planted during her earthly incarnation. Such a complex personality was she who planted the seed of the wisdom religion in the Western world, and she is still directing its garnering from the higher planes. And that ends that chapter. Holy shitballs. The next one is power. Whoa. Although I differ greatly on a lot of that is very much truth. And Suzanne Lai gives you the blueprint for the androgyny, for the separation, for the working of complements. Her book is giving you those details that this chapter is pretty much outlining. So if you read those two books, you have more of a greater understanding of what this is talking about. Please look at Suzanne Lai as a template for this discussion. Very important. Her work, Suzanne Lai, and also the Curtises. You're taking something from the early 1900s and now you're extrapolating what knowledge and information has grown thus far in society, and your divine complement is your other self. Regardless of what you think, we have guides of all different genders, androgynies, and essences working with us concurrently now. Don't deny them. Understand your role as a gender you came in on and as. You're here for a reason. You're here engendered in a body form for a reason. You're expressing yourself the way that you are for a reason. Go looking deeper. And if you have the remembering of other lives that are concurrently happening and taking place right now in the multiverse, but even not in the multiverse, if you want to say linear time space and say reincarnation, cool with me. It doesn't matter. It's perception. The crux of all of this is that there's much more to this life than we can imagine. And we are a bigger vastness of energy than you can even think of. There's no comprehension to it in human language, at least for the moment now. We're moving forward, and it's up to each and every one of us to look at the work from the past and go, oh, how can we better this notion? Well, Suzanne Lai did it when it comes to at least to that concept. Mind-blowing. Of course, always a fantastic read from the Curtises. I'm going to leave it here. Sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within. Be the shoulder. Be the lighthouse. Seed your truths. I hope to see you all in the next one. Tomorrow for Craft and Sip Live. I don't know what time I'm going to be doing that. I have to get to the post office because it was closed today. This is going to somebody. Also, I have to cancel my other internet because I like the one that I was, from T-Mobile, and I have to go cancel and return. I have to hope that I can cancel and return the thing back because the rest of the week is going to be sub-zero and possibly snow, and I'm not driving in this weather for that. So I'm hoping to get a lot of my errands done tomorrow. So I don't know what time my live will be. I will come in and do some, I have a lot of crafts I want to do. So just keep on the lookout for that. Yeah. And thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like. I see the algorithm on Little Thor videos, the shorts, they're like 2-3 days off. I'm now starting to see like videos starting to get views, and like one day I'm only getting like 5 views and it's not updating properly. I don't know what's going on. But make sure you're liking, and thank you all for your lovely and beautiful comments. I hope to see you all in the next one. Have a blessed and beautiful day. Bye for now.